is a real pleasure to be with such an incredible group of women. And I want to start by, at the risk of embarrassing myself just a little bit, start with a personal story. I live in Seattle, and we are known to get, in the winter sometimes, really powerful windstorms. And one December, many years back, we had such a storm. And the next morning, I go out to assess the damage and see what's happened. And I had my two boys in tow. They were young at the time, 5 and 8. And we look, and a big tree has fallen over. And it's covering not just our yard, but into the street, blocking the street. I have a problem. We live on a private street, and so removing this big, massive tree is my responsibility. I have another problem. My husband is out of town. So I reflect, and I think, what should I do? So ever the optimist, I head over to the tool shed. I quickly find some safety goggles and look around for what might be the appropriate power tool. I find one that looks pretty robust. I take it out and go over to the tree. My boys' eyes are now getting as big as saucers. This is pretty exciting. And I'm assessing the situation. I'm reading the label on this power tool. And it's warning me if the mix of oil and gas isn't just right, serious damage, including dismemberment, can happen. So my confidence is starting to waver a little bit, and my neighbor walks by, looks at what's happening, and he has a smirk on his face. And he says to me, "Do you realize that you have a hedge trimmer?" So clearly, no match for this size of the tree. And in reflecting on this, I realize that my viewpoint, the way I viewed my role in the tool shed, had direct impact on my ability to perform when the storms hit. So there's another tool, a tool that we use every day, the tool of money. In this next 15 minutes, I want you to consider what viewpoints might we have that need to be reframed about money. Like me, do any of you have a similar story where you viewed yourself in a certain role and when the storm hit, you were unprepared to handle it? So let's take a deeper look at our views around money and where the opportunities are to reframe them so that we can master our money and be the boss of our own life, even when the storm hits. So when I Googled math is hard, what do you think the first image that came up for me was? Math is hard. Barbie. Math is hard, let's go shopping. So how helpful is that? So let's take a look at the research, not just any research, but meta-analysis of over 100 studies involving 3 million participants to get to the bottom of if our brains, male and female brain, is different as it pertains to our ability to do math. And yes, girls had a little bit of an edge in elementary and middle school, and the boys had a little bit of an edge in problem solving in high school, but overall, those differences narrowed as they aged, and there was no meaningful difference in the biological brain of male and female as it pertains to math. So now that we're really clear about that, let's look at the study that the researchers behind the Power of the Purse, love the title, project did. And they administered a financial literacy test to men and women, and what they found was, one, we have a vast room for improvement for financial literacy. You see 39% of men and 35% of women pass this, so not a huge difference. The big difference came when they looked at the confidence level, and that women were 44% less likely to consider themselves knowledgeable. So we had a real gap here in confidence. So what can we do about this? Is there anything we can do to change this situation? Enter the Nobel Prize-winning idea of reframing. Daniel Kahneman, a psychologist, won the Nobel Prize in Economics in 2002 for his research, including his research about reframing. Let me give you an example of reframing. You're offered an investment. Investment 1 has an 80% chance of success. Investment 2 has a 20% chance of failure. Which investment sounds more appealing? Option 1, right? 80% chance of success. But wait a minute, aren't they the same? Framing matters. And in Kahneman's research, he found that framing influenced our psychology of decision-making and the actions we took. So this glass is filled exactly to the midpoint with liquid, and I might view this as the glass is half full or the glass is half empty. Which one's right? They're both right, right? 2 right answers, but the way I view that has impact on how I behave. If I view that as the glass is half full, I might be grateful. I might take a sip of that water, improving my hydration and well-being. If I view that as the glass is half empty, I might be disappointed, suspicious. Did someone take a sip out of this already? I might choose not to drink the water. So the way we frame things has real impact on how we make decisions and the actions we take. So let's look at another powerful story, going back to the year 1912, to see how powerful is this idea of reframing. Theodore Roosevelt was running for president of the United States, and in a very hard-fought race, they were at the end of almost nearing the end of the election, and they had planned a real kind of whistle-stop journey that last little bit. They'd printed up 3 million of these pamphlets with this very presidential picture on the front, and they were about to go when someone in the campaign noticed something in the lower left-hand corner there. Moffett Studios. It was a copyrighted picture. What were they to do, right? With not a lot of funds left and out of time, without missing a beat, the campaign manager, George Perkins, sent a telegram right away to Moffett Studios. We are planning to distribute millions of copies in this presidential race. It will be a great publicity opportunity for the studio whose picture we choose to use. How much would you be willing to pay us to use your photo? Moffett swiftly replied, I've never done this before, but under the circumstances, I'd be pleased to offer you $250. Problem solved. That's the power of reframing. Did you notice that when you reframe something, there's not this long buildup? Boom, it's instant. It's one of my favorite things about it. So in talking with some of the visionary women, these were some of the things that we hear, that we think needs reframing. And I think it's different for all of us, wherever we are on our life journey. But if any of these might resonate with you, let's take a look at a big one, communication. So have any of you ever heard the message, it's impolite to talk about money, right? And then yet, how helpful is that when we go to skill build, if we haven't had those conversations? So if we can engage the cognitive part of our brain to ask a thinking question, what are the pros and cons of talking about money versus the pros and cons of not talking about money? So in your folders, you have a white paper that we did called, Is There Love in Money? And it's on, yes, reframing. So as part of this project, we asked participants what their primary mode of money communication was in their family. And what do you think was the most common mode of money communication? I talk to my family about money, a telling conversation. Not, I avoid it. I do everything for them, taking away skill building opportunities, or I talk with them about money. What do you guys think? What's your guess? 2. So 2 was the highest. 38% of families have a telling conversation. Think of Henry Ford in the industrial age. I ask for a set of hands, and they come with a head attached. So followed by 4, right? The whole, it's impolite to talk about money. I don't know what to say, so I don't say anything. Please sign the tax return, dear. You don't need to understand what it says. We've taken care of everything for you. A little patronizing, very loving and supportive, but we're missing the skill building opportunities. So if you look at with that learning conversation where I come really interested and with my viewpoints and also open and curious to hear yours, right? What we can look at this and say, about 3/4 of families are using suboptimal ways to communicate about money. Big opportunity for us, right, in talking with parents, right, above and to the senior generations and rising generations. So one reframe about this might be the on and off switch, right? I think if I'm gonna have a money conversation, I need to, the big reveal, I'm gonna reveal it all, right? On and off switch versus maybe a more effective dimmer switch. This is going to be a series of conversations over time. Right? That was the message, that's the message in my house is we share the right amount of information at the right time. And when my kids ask questions about money, the first thing is what's the question behind the question? And then sometimes we talk about it and sometimes, you know, it's beyond their pay grade at that time, right? We come back to it later. So think about the different natural life events and how you might engage in learning conversations talking with family members about money. So as I thought about what could we talk about to give you a practical tool that you could take action? Because when you come to sessions like this, and today and these wonderful breakouts that you'll be going to, you know, one of three things might happen. Either you're reminded of something you already knew, you learn something new, or you're inspired enough by something that you take action to improve your financial well-being. And we hope that all of those happen, but especially that last one. So what is a practical tool to help you with this Nobel Prize-winning idea of reframing? So I thought about this. I called up my friend Andy Bernstein and said, could we use your reframing worksheet? And he said, sure. So in your folders, you will find Andy's reframing worksheet. And it's a very simple but effective method of actively using the reframing tool to mine for insights. So let's take a look at what that looks like. Okay. The first thing is you put your statement that you think needs reframing. In our example here, it's impolite to talk about money. How strongly on a scale of 1 to 10 do we feel like about that? 10 being the highest. Let's say that we're a 7 to start. And then we look at how we feel and how we act. Anxious, insecure, nervous, tense. And how we act. Blame, find fault with, shut down. Now here's the power. Turn the statement on its head. What's the opposite of that? And you add two things, something at the beginning and something at the end. In reality, at this time. So whatever it is, in reality, at this time. In reality, it's important to foster an open dialogue about money at this time. And the work continues. Now you've got to come up with 10 supporting statements to back up your new framing, right? We know that lack of communication is the #1 cause, 60% of the reason why wealth transitions fail. So pretty important. Communication also, if we're worried about risk, it allows you to address the potential risk, right? Intent's invisible. Communicating intent adds clarity. And you can go on and on. You get the ideas, right? And you can ask for a lifeline if you're doing this. I was having lunch with someone that had financial abundance, and she said to me, you know, I feel like I don't have enough, and I know it's not my reality. I know it's not true, but I feel like I don't have enough. She had this fear-based. So we quickly went through the reframing, and she came up with the first 6, and the rest of us helped with the other 4, and boom, it's instant, that realization, right? So now how do you feel? Curious, honest, optimistic, right? And go back to your original statement, it's impolite to talk about money, and now how strongly do you feel? We've gone from a 7 in this example to a 2. That's the power of this tool. So I know this is like a lightning speed introduction to this tool. So you'll just have to trust me, take it, and find a couple opportunities to use it over the next 30 days. So with that, I'd like to just quickly introduce, or just remind you of the 3 sessions we have UCLA professor Bruce Carlin with Launching a Business, UCLA professor Cassie Holmes with Cultivating Meaning and Happiness, and Victoria Santoro will be leading a wonderful panel discussion with two courageous women sharing their own incredible stories, Jennifer Lynn and Daniela Slesser. And so look at the color of your tickets and proceed to continue to learn as we lean into this sea shift of women's empowerment and take control of mastering our money. Thank you so much.